Well, this was a news that I was not really expecting. It seems that the Dynamic Chord franchise is back, this time around celebrating its 10th anniversary and bringing a whole lot of news to the table, and some of those quite surprising. So let's talk about those in this episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Welcome to SEIYUU Lounge. I am your host Vanessa, and today we are going to talk about Dynamic Chord, a franchise that I believe not many of you will be familiar with, and some of you will be thinking, wow, they are back again? Finally? Or something in between those lines. So it seems the Dynamic Chord franchise this time around wanted to celebrate its 10th anniversary, because this is an important anniversary, and they announced a couple of new things. But at the same time, looking at these new things, I think that the franchise is almost trying to bid goodbye to us. But let's talk about each of the new announcements to see why I'm saying this. Dynamic Chord is a mixed media project launched in 2014. It kicked off with visual novels, sooner branched out to drama CDs, and then to music releases. In 2017, an anime adaptation premiered, and it was heavily met with criticism, and a smartphone game was launched in 2018 and was met with the same criticism and was soon discontinued. The project features 4 bands, all tied to each other in one way or another. The bands are Rêve Parfait, Liars, Apple Polisher, and Kyoso. The cast is amazing for all these bands. In Rêve Parfait we have Takuya Guchi, Ryohei Kimura, Kosuke Toriumi and Yuya Hirose. In Liars we have Takuma Terashima, Nobuhiko Okamoto, Tetsuya Kakihara and Soma Saito. In Apple Polisher we have Shota Aoi, Yuichiro Mehara, Yoshiki Nakajima and Takahiro Sakurai. And in Kyoso we have Shotaro Morikubo, Shinosuke Tachibana, Kaito Ishikawa and Taku Yashiro. The lineup is amazing, all bands have a different feel, their music is actually quite good, the visual novels were amazing, but the smartphone game was awful and the anime was even worse. So this is quite the comeback in here. If you want to know more about this franchise, I've created a written feature on the website you can check at THTFHQ. You have a guide to Dynamic Chord to go really through all the story of the franchise up until its return. As well as here on the YouTube channel, you have as well a video version of that feature that features a couple of songs, previews and even reviews in there, which is quite awesome. So you can check both and get to know a bit more about Dynamic Chord, but I'm not going to talk extensively about them in here, otherwise this is an episode about Dynamic Chord and not about their announcements. So let's dive to the announcements. We have a new Shuffle CD series. So this is going to be the third Shuffle CD series, titled Dynamic Chord Shuffle CD Series 3rd, and it is scheduled to start this winter. This is quite interesting because the Shuffle series usually are quite quirky, and the only thing really shuffling in between these units is basically the vocal, because all other members do not sing. So you will have Shota Aoi, Takuma Terashima, Takuya Guchi and Shotaro Morikubo shuffling around to match with different styles on the drums, on the guitars and on bass, and to create really interesting, sometimes quite good shuffle units. So this time around we have 4 shuffle units, of course, and we have XXX of Darkness, and this lineup brings Shotaro Morikubo on vocals as Yorito, on guitar we have Kwon, Kosuke Toriumi, on bass we have Shinobu, voiced by Yuichiro Mehara, and on drums we have Seri, voiced by Tetsuya Kakihara. In case you have played the game, Seri is quite the messed up character, but I'm not going to dive into that, because we would need to call 911 because his character is crazy. Then we have Zip Your Lip. This unit brings Takuma Terashima on vocals and guitar, because Inoyama basically sings and plays guitar for Liars. Then we have Aoi on guitar, basically voiced by Yoshiki Nakajima, Yu on bass, voiced by Kaito Ishikawa, and Yusei on drums, voiced by Takahiro Sakurai. This is going to be quite the interesting lineup, because we have 2 members of Apple Polisher in here, so I believe this group will be the one sounding the most electronic or electronic rock out of them all, but I may be wrong. Then we have No Name Satellite. This sounds like the name of an indie rock band and I'm all in for it. The lineup brings Takuya Guchi on vocals as Reon, Chie on guitar, voiced by Nobuhiko Okamoto, Haru on bass, voiced by Soma Saito, and Shinomune on drums, voiced by Yashiro Taku. It seems like this is going to be the most indie rock band in here because of the whole vibe with the members. Then we have Yohira. Yohira brings Shotawa on vocals as Nal, Toki on guitar as basically voiced by Shinosuke Tachibana, Momo on bass voiced by Hyohei Kimura, and Aki on drums voiced by Yuya Hirose. Seeing that we have Kyoso's guitarist, Toki, in here, this is going to be quite interesting, so I'm quite curious to see how it goes. So we have 4 bands in here, they will all release music. It is expected the music to drop sometime this winter, and winter goes from December until March next year, so we have to wait. And this franchise can change their idea or their focus out of nowhere, so we do not know, but at least they aim to release the music in this winter. It seems the games will be ported for the Nintendo Switch, which is basically something that I was really hoping for a long time. As I own a Switch and I play most of my games in there, and especially I use the Switch to play visual novels, so that's perfect. But I'm assuming this is going to be a port in Japanese and not a translation to international fans or for international fans. But assuming that Akisys or any other company will pick these up, we may get these games on Switch, which is amazing. But yeah, the games are going to be ported to Nintendo Switch. The first game to be ported is Rêve Parfait, focused exclusively on that specific band. According to Honeybee Black, the CD or the game actually is going to be dropped sometime in 2025, so the game is being developed or ported right now. We do not know for sure when it drops, but they aim for 2025. They haven't mentioned any other game to be ported and even the dates in which they aim to release those games, but we can assume that if Rêve Parfait actually gets a good sales number, we are going to get every single other game in this franchise. There are a total of 4, 1 per band. So I'm quite hoping that we finally get the games ported to Nintendo Switch, because I need my Apple Polisher and Kyoso games. Those are the only 2 bands that have relatively decent people, and still they have really awful people in their bands. But yeah, we are going to get the games on Nintendo Switch. At the moment, we can assume that this is going to be released just for Japan, and maybe with luck, since the game will be on Nintendo Switch, some licensor picks this up and translates those to English, and we kind of get those sometime later in 2025 in English. So this could be good news for international fans, and for sure this is good news for fans in Japan that will come across perhaps this franchise for the very first time, or will revisit this franchise. And especially since these visual novels were really well done, this is going to be really awesome, because the smartphone game is the worst example, or even the anime series are the worst examples you can give about what the Dynamic Chord franchise is. If we talk about the visual novels, you are talking about creme de la creme in terms of quality. Those visual novels are really, really good. And the background music, amazing as well. So this is a set of games for the Nintendo Switch that I'm quite excited about. And seeing as we are going to get Rêve Parfait in 2025, if things go right, we can get all those games on Nintendo Switch. So I'm really, really, really excited about this. Dynamic Chord Jam & Join is back, although no one wanted it back. So this is the weirdest part of the news, that a game that was so heavily criticized is going to find its way again, and people will get their hands on it if they want to, which I believe not many people will. Dynamic Chord Jam & Join is back, that smartphone game that no one liked and that really ended really fast. It was heavily criticized because it was a gacha game through and through. There was nothing there to keep people entertained and engaged with it. The story was not voiced. They didn't make an effort to make that game playable. Yes, you could play it, but there was nothing there happening that would make you want to play. Not even the cards had good designs. So that was a really poor effort to cash in on an anime adaptation that was already bad, and it didn't make any sense. But then again, it's going to find its way back. One thing that I found it a bit weird in their description of Jam & Join being back is the fact that They didn't mention it as an archive app, like for example the Yumerocast franchise mentioned, and people actually understood that the game is going to be back. And it's going to be back fully. But in this case, what the Dynamic Chord franchise said was that they are going to get the game as a collection. I do not understand what they mean with collection, honestly, because the game was only one game. And there's no collection to be had in here. So I don't feel, or I don't understand when they say it is going to be a digital collection. Is this going to be a website in which people can see the content from the game? A place in which the story is going to be all in there for people to read? They are going to add anything? I do not understand this part of the news. They were not clear and their website was not updated, so we don't even know if this is going to be a thing. But yeah, from what they said on Twitter, this is going to be a digital collection. Do what you want with that, because this doesn't make any sense. A digital archive collection. This doesn't sound like a game to me, at least from the description. I hope the game actually finds its way, because it was already created, but if it is going to be available for people to play, as it was when it was discontinued, why bother? Why bother, really? I believe not many people will want to purchase the game, because not even the voices of their favorite characters are in there. So you are only paying for the sprites. You need to really, really love this franchise to a point in which you don't even need the voices to actually play a game. But that's a completely different talk. But yeah, the game is going to find some way of being back, despite being heavily criticized, being a really, really messed up release that was quickly discontinued, and now they are going to try to find a way to put it out there again. This doesn't make any sense to me, but then again, I'm not Honeybee Black, so I'm not going to say anything about that. Further, at least. But yeah, they aim to release this game this year, so this is quite ambitious from them, seeing as they often miss deadlines. So let's see what they do, and hopefully they actually come forward with the game as it should have been, and not the game as it was. So it seems that the Dynamic Chord franchise is back. They are aiming to celebrate their 10th anniversary with a couple of interesting announcements. One of those doesn't make any sense. Once again, Dynamic Chord Gem and Join. For those that played, I played the game. The game was downright awful, was so boring to the level, or even more boring than the SEIYUU franchise game, which was just clicking and pointing some things. But still, you could play songs in that game. In this game, you couldn't even play songs, so it was even more boring and repetitive. So this game was not really a star in the lineup of Dynamic Chord franchise. But one thing that I believe is one really good thing in this franchise that people usually don't pay as much attention to, because it's not that easy to find the visual novels, and the visual novels are in Japanese, not in English. They were never translated to international fans. Is that the visual novels were genuinely good. The stories were genuinely good. Of course, there are problems. Tetsuya Kakihara and Shinosuke Tachibana voiced two completely messed up characters in this franchise. Tetsuya Kakihara's character is from Liars, and Shinosuke Tachibana's character is from Kyoso. Those two characters are so messed up, I don't even know where to start talking about those. But still, you have, for example, I believe that the best game in this franchise is from Apple Polisher. Actually, the band that I love the most in terms of sound. It was the band that actually made me fall in love with Shotawai's voice. So that's yet another thing, and it was the game that actually made me fall in love with Yoshiki Nakajima's voice. So this is quite the special game to me, and I did enjoy really how the stories were more mature than the ones in Rêve Parfait or the ones in Liars, for example, because I played the games chronologically. So I did enjoy those a whole lot. And actually my favorite character is Kuro, voiced by Yuichiro Mehara. He's the leader of Apple Polisher, and I do love him a whole lot. His story is a bit messed up, but not because he is a messed up character. But it is really awesome because in that game you are actually a singer and you end up working together with Apple Polisher. In the other games you are a childhood friend or a college colleague or friend, and in others you are the manager. In the case of Kyoso, you are the new manager. So you are a completely different person from game to game, which is awesome. And in Apple Publishers, I did find that really interesting to live the fantasy of being a singer, being in the industry and seeing the struggles of being a singer and not doing what you actually know that you can do and things not working out, and how bands and singers support each other and how you can overcome problems. It was really, really interesting to see that perspective more so than the others. I believe the visual novels are really good. They are really long. I believe that I took a long time, more than 9 or 12 hours, just for Kuro's Route. I believe it was the time that it took me back then, but I was reading the kanji and I was taking my time reading and trying to learn the language, but it still took a long time, and it is quite the lengthy visual novel. I hope that these games releases actually include the fan discs, and that each game includes the fan disc that was released for them, because the fan discs brought new routes in each band, because the main game only adapted 3 out of the 4 members, and the 4th member was only present in the fan disc, which is a bit of a downer, but still, it made sense back then. But yeah, I'm quite excited about these. We have also a short story book coming. This is not really my thing, because I'm not really that into short stories that go on a tangent in the franchise, but those that like the lore, this may be for you. The game ported to the Nintendo Switch is kind of exciting. The shuffle units are they are kind of exciting, although I was not the biggest fan of the previous shuffle units, so I'll have to wait and see what they can pull off. And knowing that the franchise changed composers for most of the bands, if not for all bands, this is going to be interesting in a way, but in some way I know that for sure they are not going to sound like they did back in the day. But still, exciting things coming to Dynamic Chord for fans of the franchise. This is the most the franchise has announced in the last couple of years, and knowing that they are now crowdfunded, it's worth mentioning they are crowdfunded. The franchise is actually putting a lot of content to the fans, and this is not something that I was expecting for the 10th anniversary. But still, looking at all the content they are dumping in some way, it seems to me that they may be preparing to end this franchise. I don't know why, but this gives me the feeling that the franchise is trying to bid goodbye, basically. So when all the Nintendo Switch games are out, I believe that this franchise will bid goodbye to everyone. I think that this is they are basically reusing content that they created in the past, and they are going to release it. One thing that is worth mentioning is that if the games are being ported to Nintendo Switch, they have the full rights to the games, which is awesome. I thought that they didn't have the full rights to the games when they parted ways with Columbia Records and with Asgard. So it seems that actually they got the rights to the games to create the Nintendo Switch ports. So this is really awesome to see. I've said this before, I did enjoy this franchise a whole lot, and I still try to pretend that the anime series and the smartphone game never happened, because this franchise was so good until then. But unfortunately that happened, and that is a massive stain in this franchise. But still, give them a chance if you can. Actually, if you play Nintendo Switch games, when the game comes out, Rêve Parfait, try to play the game and see if you enjoy it, or try to read some reviews online and see if this is your kind of thing, because these games were really, really good. I believe some of the best mature rated visual novels focused on rock bands, so this is really, really cool, or focused on music, so this is kind of exciting for me. I've been waiting for a port to the Switch, so that's something that really excites me. I was expecting new songs by each band and not shuffle songs, honestly, but it's already good that they are releasing music and they are showing some activity in such a special year. It's a pity how down they fell, but it is good to see that they are trying to come back and they are doing the best to come back. So this is all I have to talk about Dynamic Chord. My question to you is, are you excited about these announcements? What are you most excited about? And in this case, if you are a fan of the franchise, which is your favorite band and why? My favorite, as I already told you, is Apple Publisher, but I would love to know which is your favorite band. And of course, if you are listening to this episode on a podcast listening platform, please give it a like or subscribe or follow the podcast. And leave a review if you feel like it, because it's not that hard to leave a review. And if you are on YouTube, in this case, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a like. And basically, I'll see you guys soon.